Hey, it's Rob here. The Oscars, Hollywood's night of nights, the biggest night in film. And for someone like me, it's one of the most insufferable times to be on the internet, the non-stop whining and drama, and I'm going to add to that right now, hopefully while it's still relevant. Let's talk about the Oscars, the 2025 ceremony, the winners, the losers, who I think should have won, who I expected to win, and who actually won. Before we get into it, I'll admit that I haven't seen every single film and short film and documentary that got nominated. The cinema where I live doesn't show a lot of that a lot of the time, and come on, I'm busy. Cut me some slack. But I've got the whole list here on my phone, so let's just go through. Let's start with the best picture and work our way down. Best picture, the winner is Anora, which is, I think, the safe choice. There's a lot here. Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, Wicked. So many nominations in the Best Picture category, gee whiz. It would have been cool to see The Substance win the award, but I don't really think it had much of a chance. The Oscars don't typically tend to nominate too many of the genre films, same with like Dune Part 2, Huge, awesome movie, and it's going to win a bunch of the technicals, but big sci-fi epics like that don't typically tend to win Best Picture. Other long shots, we've got Nickel Boys. It only got nominated for 2 awards, so I'm really sort of confused. It's a great film, but I don't see why they gave it a Best Picture nomination when there's a couple others that they could have gone with. The Complete Unknown was one of those ones that, we'll recognize it, but it's not going to win anything. Conclave is a boomer movie, so it was in with a pretty good chance, honestly, depending on the average age of the Oscar voter, you know what I mean? And The Brutalist would have been a really deserving winner. It's an awesome movie. I see why they went with Anora, though. It's definitely, I think, the safe pick. It won the Palme d'Or. It seems like the least controversial one here. I thought it was going to go to Emilia Perez because, it got 13 nominations and it was like the big thing. But I think the bad press surrounding Emilia Perez sort of tanked its chances of sweeping the whole thing. Best directing is really interesting. This is one of the first years that I can sort of remember where there isn't like a big household name nominated in the category. There's no Spielberg, there's no Tarantino, there's no Scorsese. We got Sean Baker for Anora, Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, James Mangold for Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, and Coralie Farge for The Substance. I probably butchered some of those pronunciations, I'm sorry. I would have loved to see it go to Coralie for The Substance. That's my pick out of the list there. I think it's the most impressive film and the most interesting one as far as the directing goes. Brady Corbett for The Brutalist also would have been a good pick. I see why they went with Sean Baker. Again, I think it's the safe sort of pick. It's the Palme d'Or winner, it won all those other awards, so we'll just sort of nominate it here. You got to remember that the Oscar voters, they don't watch all of these films, and Nora getting all the praise that it got is really going to sort of contribute to how well it does at the Oscars. It's a great film, but I don't know, I would have gone The Substance. Pretty glad it didn't go to Emilia Perez. I really don't think it was directed that well. And A Complete Unknown, I liked A Complete Unknown, but these musical biopics, they are a little Oscar baity, so it is kind of good to see that behavior not being rewarded. Best Actor in a Leading Role is actually a really interesting category. It's a really competitive one. Adrian Brody in The Brutalist, Timothée Chalamet, Coleman Domingo, Ray Fiennes, and Sebastian Stan. Personally, I would have liked to see it go to Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. I thought he did a really, really great job as Bob Dylan, and it would have been cool to see him get his first Oscar. It would have been a really deserving one. I think he was even a little bit better in Dune, but big sci-fi epics like that don't typically tend to get too many of the acting nominations. Coleman Domingo, he's a really great actor. I think he was the least likely to win that one. I just don't think there was as much buzz around Sing Sing as the rest of these films. Ray Fiennes, it would have been really cool to see him win as well. I honestly thought that Sebastian Stan was probably going to win it. I thought that maybe the Oscar voters would have done a bit of like a protest vote, go for the Donald Trump movie, but no, they went with Adrian Brody. I think was the safest sort of pick. Adrian Brody has won an Oscar before, and he does a really good job in The Brutalist, but it's, I think, the least controversial out of all these. So Adrian Brody, yeah, that makes sense. Best Actress is really interesting. Mikey Madison winning for Anora. I think a lot of people were pulling for Demi Moore to win. It's sort of like a Brendan Fraser sort of win, someone who's put in the hard yards and was sort of disrespected by the industry for a long period of time, and then they sort of get this chance to shine and sort of brings their career back. It would have been really cool to see Demi Moore win for The Substance. That would have been my pick. She was the favorite to win it. But Mikey Madison winning for Anora, that's a pretty decent win. I mean, it's probably the one I would have preferred next. Maybe Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here. Fantastic performance. I'm pretty glad it didn't go to Cynthia Erivo in Wicked, or especially Kalia Sofia Gascon and Emilia Perez. It would have been interesting to see a trans woman win Best Actress, but I really think that all of the bad press sort of tanked the chances of winning that one. And Wicked is just kind of mid. I'm sorry, it's not really my thing. I'm not a huge musical guy. And Best Actor in a Supporting Role, I was hoping that it was going to go to Edward Norton. I thought he did a really, really good job as Pete Seeger in A Complete Unknown. I thought that was a really charming performance. I thought it was going to go to Guy Pearce in The Brutalist. Part of me was pulling for him as well, Aussie. That would have been really cool to see. They've gone for Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, though. He's the one that took home the win. In retrospect, I'm not surprised. I thought that Guy Pearce was going to win it, but Kieran Culkin, I think, is the safer sort of pick. I have a feeling that all of the Oscar voters were probably just really big fans of Succession and just sort of like, he was really good at that, but I haven't seen all these movies, so we'll vote for Kieran Culkin. It's a deserving win. I mean, he's great in the movie. Jeremy Strong is absolutely fantastic in The Apprentice as well. It would have been really cool to see it go to him, but I think that the Oscar voters were just trying to keep as little politics out of it as possible. So I see why they went with Kieran. It's a deserved win, but it does feel a little bit like the safe pick. I didn't really have a horse in the race for Best Supporting Actress. Zoe Saldana won for Emilia Perez. She's probably the best part of Emilia Perez, honestly, but would I have picked her over Monica Barbaro or Ariana Grande, Felicity Jones, or Isabella Rossini? Probably not. I like Zoe Saldana. I think that she's deserving of a win, but not for that movie. I don't really know who I would have wanted to win. I liked A Complete Unknown, so maybe Monica Barbaro, maybe Felicity Jones was probably the most deserving there. I thought that Ariana Grande was actually going to win it. That would have been interesting. It would have been cool. It seems like the kind of thing that the Oscars would do, but no, they've gone for Zoe Saldana instead. And Nora also won for Best Original Screenplay. Yeah, pretty decent pick, I suppose. The Brutalist was maybe a little bit stronger. I'm surprised that it didn't go to A Real Pain, honestly. That was my pick for these. In these comedy drama films like A Real Pain, they tend to do pretty good in the screenplay category, so I'm surprised that it actually lost that one. September 5, I don't know why it was even nominated. It's a decent thriller, but screenplay? Come on. Best Adapted Screenplay went to Conclave. I thought A Complete Unknown might have walked away with this one. The biopics tend to do pretty well in the Best Adapted Screenplay. I'm glad that it didn't go to Emilia Perez. The screenplay isn't very good. Nickel Boys and Sing Sing were both dark horses here. Would have been cool to see it go to either of those, but no, I think Conclave was pretty well the front runner here. Best Animated Feature was a really, really interesting one this year. They've gone with Flow, the Latvian film. I can't wait to go see it. I haven't actually seen it yet. It hasn't shown here. It's not on streaming yet where I am, so I'm really looking forward to catching that one. They've gone with that. It's won pretty much every other award that it's been nominated for, which is a crazy run for an international animated feature. I'm glad that it didn't go to Inside Out 2. I was a little bit worried that the Oscar voters would be like, oh, I've made a whole bunch of money, so we'll just nominate it for that. Memoir of a Snail would have been really interesting to see win, Aussie, but I'm not surprised that it didn't win there. I would have loved to see it go The Wild Robot. It's one of my favorite films that I saw last year. I thought the animation was absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the best films that DreamWorks have put out in years. This film continues DreamWorks' streak of not winning an Oscar. I don't think they've won since like 2005 for Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Speaking of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, we got Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. The Oscars love Wallace and Gromit. Obviously Curse of the Were-Rabbit won, but a bunch of their shorts have also won Oscars as well. It would have been an interesting win, but Flow, I'm happy to see it go to Flow. As long as it wasn't Inside Out 2, I would have been happy. Best International Feature Film. Lately, every single year that there's been an international feature film that's also nominated for Best Picture, that international film is just going to win that category by default. It's a really weird sort of system that they've got at the moment. It makes sense. Are you going to vote for one of these, or are you going to go vote for this one, which is also nominated for Best Picture? I have a feeling that this is one of the categories that the Academy voters tend to watch the least. They're just going to vote for a film that they recognize from the Best Picture category. I don't know, maybe that's a bit cynical. That's just how it reads. This year's international feature film, though, actually had a bit of competition because there's 2 Best Picture nominated films here. It went to I'm Still Here, which is the better film of the 2, if we're completely honest. Flow is an interesting nomination for Best International Feature Film as well. It's cool to see it nominated here, but it wasn't going to beat I'm Still Here. The other 2 films I haven't seen. I'm sure they're good, but they're not going to win against a film that's also nominated for Best Picture. Best Documentary Feature Film. I haven't really seen many of these, unfortunately, but I'm glad that it went to No Other Land. I've got Palestinian heritage, so it's really cool to see a Palestinian film take home an Oscar. It's interesting, I mentioned before that, maybe the Oscars are avoiding all the political choices, but I guess I'm wrong on that one, aren't I? Best Documentary Shorts. I really didn't watch any of these. I'm not really a shorts guy. The Only Girl in the Orchestra. Yeah, it's a pretty cool win, I suppose. Best Live Action Short went to I'm Not a Robot. Interesting win. It's a pretty cool premise. Best Animated Short Film, In the Shadow of the Cypress. Again, a lot of these I just haven't seen. scene. I don't know, it's just like weirder stuff, I guess. Best music, best original score went to The Brutalist. Pretty happy with that as a winner. I think I would have preferred it go to The Wild Robot. I think that the score in The Wild Robot is incredible and it does a lot of the heavy lifting. It's a great score in The Wild Robot. I'm happy that it went to The Brutalist. I'm happy that it didn't go to Emilia Perez or Wicked, especially Emilia Perez. That one clip going viral really sort of tanked any chance of it winning for best score, but it didn't stop it from winning best original song. El Mal from Emilia Perez won that one. You got a song from Sing Sing, song from Elton John, Never Too Late. I know that the Academy loves Elton John, but come on, that's like a concert film. The 68888, are we really giving Oscar nominations to Tyler Perry movies now? What's going on here? Emilia Perez had 2 songs in this category, so I'm really not surprised that it won the Oscar here. El Mal is fine, I guess. It's one of the better songs in the film. It's just started raining outside. Cyclone Alfred is on his way. Best sound went to Dune Part 2. I think out of all the nominations here, that's who I would have wanted to win. The sound in Dune Part 2 is fantastic. It's one of the best sounding films of last year. It's such an atmospheric soundscape. It's got so many cool sound effects and like interesting noises for all the weird alien machinery. It's a deserving win here. A Complete Unknown, I mean, it's a musical biopic, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has best sound. Emilia Perez and Wicked, I don't know why the Oscars are equating is a musical to best sound. Do they know that sound and music aren't necessarily the same thing? I don't know. The other one was The Wild Robot. It'll be cool to see an animated film also win best sound. I don't think it was going to happen this year just because the soundscapes in Dune Part 2 are just crazy. It's one of the best sounding films ever. Very deserving win. I thought it was going to win. I wanted it to win and it won. So there you go. Best production design is a pretty competitive one here. I went to Wicked. I think that that's actually a really deserving one. I'm not huge on Wicked, but the production design in that one is really colorful. It's really flashy. It's really sort of interesting and fantastical. I think it really does a great job here. It would have been cool to see it go to Nosferatu, but again, it's a horror movie, so the Academy hates it. Dune Part 2 would have also been a really great winner. I see why it didn't win. It's nowhere near as sort of flashy as Wicked, so I think that Wicked is going to attract attention over that. Conclave also got a nomination for Best Production Design. I'm not really sure why. I mean, it's just a bunch of hallways, isn't it? Like, hallways and candles. I don't know. The Brutalist would have been a really deserving winner as well in the whole 1940s, 1950s vibe. They've nailed that one really, really well, and the whole film, the focus on architecture, it would have been a deserving winner, but I'm really not surprised that it went to Wicked out of all of these. It's the flashiest, and it did do a really good job with its production design. Best Cinematography, unsurprisingly, went to The Brutalist. The cinematography in that film is absolutely divine. Although Dune Part 2 would have been a really, really great winner as well. That film looks fantastic. Emilia Perez also got a nomination for cinematography as well, and I'm really not sure why. The film looks like ass. Maria is fine. Nosferatu would have been really cool to win as well, but maybe I'm sounding like a broken record. It's a horror movie. It's the Oscars. It's not going to win. I'm very happy with The Brutalist as the winner, though. I think that that's a very deserving win. Best makeup and hairstyling went to The Substance, which is a fantastic win. The gore effects in that movie and the makeup are just fantastic. It really does a great job with that. A Different Man also would have been a deserving nomination. Nosferatu, again, horror movie. Although I say that, and The Substance won. Wicked got a nomination as well, I think for turning Cynthia Erivo green. And Emilia Perez, yeah, it was fine, but it was nowhere near as harrowing as the makeup and gore effects in The Substance. That film is one of a kind. Best costume design went to Wicked. It's not a surprise, the costumes in that movie are pretty good, but it didn't really have too much of a competition. It was up against Nosferatu. Horror movie, not going to win. Gladiator 2, the only nomination that it got, which is surprising. That could have been a decent winner. Conclave and A Complete Unknown also. The costumes in that just aren't anywhere near as flashy as they are in Wicked. I'm not surprised that Wicked won this one. Best film editing went to Anora. It's a pretty decent win, I think. The Brutalist could have also been a good one. I don't know why Emilia Perez was nominated for the editing. The editing in that movie is trash. I'm really surprised that Emilia Perez got as many nominations as it did, especially for a lot of the technical categories, because it's just not technically that well made. But Anora, I think, is a really good pick for editing. And then Best Visual Effects, of course, it went to Dune Part 2. It was always going to go to Dune Part 2. I don't know why they even bothered nominating these other ones. The effects in Dune Part 2 are absolutely phenomenal. All the stuff with Arrakis and the sandworms and the stuff that they managed to do with the practical effects and the digital effects. It's one of the most technically excellent films I think I've ever seen. But it's really cool that Alien Romulus got a nomination. It's especially cool that Better Man got a nomination for the CGI monkey monkey Robbie Williams. 2 movies got nominations for visual effects for CGI monkeys. That's pretty crazy. Wicked as well. Yeah, I mean, it looks good, but the visual effects aren't anywhere near as good as they are in Dune Part 2. That one was locked and loaded. And those are all the awards. There's a few other things as well. Conan O'Brien did an absolutely fantastic job as the host. He was so funny. His monologue was great. His jokes were great. You know, he was a really endearing host as well. I'm surprised that they kept Jimmy Kimmel as long as they did. Jimmy Kimmel sucks. The in memoriam section, there was a lot of names that weren't there. No Tony Todd. I mean, I know that you guys don't like horror, but no Tony Todd. Are you guys serious? Are you kidding? But you know, all around, it was a pretty decent ceremony, I suppose. The winners weren't terrible. I thought that it could have been a whole lot worse. It was pretty good, you know. It's a solid B, I think. B plus, maybe. I also just want to quickly mention a few snubs. Challenges. Challenges could easily have got a Best Actress nomination for Zendaya, but it really should have been nominated for Best Editing, Best Cinematography, and Best Score. You know, the Trent Reznor Atticus Ross score is absolutely fantastic. The editing is really snappy and sharp, and my god, the cinematography, the camera work in Challenges is absolutely nuts. It's one of the most frenetically put together movies I've ever seen, and to see it not get nominated for anything is crazy. And there's also a film like Queer. You know, Daniel Craig, it's arguably his best acting ever. He should have got an Oscar nomination for his acting, and no Best Director nod for Luca Guadagnino for either of those 2 films, Challenges or Queer, is crazy. He directed the hell out of those movies. It would have been a very well-deserved nomination. Not just 1, but 2. How many other directors have a year like that? What else? You know, Baby Girl, I think, could have been nominated for a Screenplay Award. Best Actress for Nicole Kidman. It would have been really cool to see Hugh Grant get a nomination for Heretic. He's really been stretching his range lately, so it's a shame that he didn't get a nomination for his acting in that one. Marianne Jean-Baptiste should also have gotten some love for Hard Truths. Woefully underrated film. A Screenplay nomination would have made sense for Saturday Night, but I guess we had to have mid-September 5 instead. It would have been really cool to see Kneecap get a nomination. Maybe Best International Feature for Ireland. Maybe it was too much of it was in English for it to count. I don't know the rules and stipulations for Best International Feature though. It's also surprising that we didn't get any nominations for Kinds of Kindness, especially considering how well Poor Things did the year before. It's another Yorgos Lanthimos, Emma Stone joint. Would have been cool to see either of them get nominated for directing or acting. Jesse Plemons was also fantastic in that movie. He definitely should have got a nomination. And damn, I saw the TV Glow. It was fantastic. Would have loved to see it get some Oscar nominations. Justice Smith for acting, Jane Schoenbrunn for directing. The editing in that film is fantastic. Would have loved to see it get nominations for those. And come on, if the Academy really wanted to acknowledge a film that deals in transgender issues, then I think that I Saw the TV Glow is a much, much better pick than Emilia Perez. But the one that hurts me the most, and the one that I think is the most baffling, is the lack of love for Furiosa. It's a bit more contentious, and it's probably not quite as critically acclaimed as Fury Road was, but you can't deny that the film is still a technical marvel. I mean, it was my favorite film of last year. It absolutely should have got a nomination for production design, for costume design, for visual effects. That was the only other movie that rivals Dune Part 2 is Furiosa. You just can't deny that. There's something about freaks who live in a sandy place, I suppose. And you know, while we're here, I'd still love for them to add a couple more categories to the Oscars. It's crazy that we don't have an Oscar for Best Stunt Work. It's a shame because there's a lot of films that came out in the last year that could have been nominated for something like that. You know, look at a film like The Fall Guy. I feel like its only existence is to try and put a bit more pressure on the Academy to add an Oscar for Best Stunt Work. Maybe it's a bit too similar to Best Stunt Work, but I'd love for them to add a category that's like Best Action Choreography or something like that. You know, it'd be a great chance to highlight a lot of films that aren't normally nominated for a whole lot of Oscars. Your John Wicks and your MCU films. A big part of cinema is spectacle, and what's more spectacular than a big kick-ass fight scene? And if you want spectacle, then how about a category for something like Best Dance Choreography? It's another great chance to highlight films that might not fit in the other categories. My name is Rob, and this has been my video talking about the Oscars for 2025. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you click like, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment if you have anything that you'd like to add, or if you have any hot takes of your own, and if you've enjoyed the video, then consider subscribing as well. I love music, I love movies, I love video games. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I'd like to start talking about. I'm going to start trying to put more and more time and effort into videos. If you're interested in checking out what I've got in store, make sure you click subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. The credits are rolling now.